What to do if you're injured, you might ask. Yes, I will endeavor to share some valuable insights in this video. But first, a message from the sponsor of this video. So I am yet again wearing the Uller's undergarments, so I'm nice and comfortable in this dreary autumn landscape. It looks dreary, but it's beautiful to me, because it's my land. So anyway, this is a follow-up to the video, my latest video, when I talked a bit about making mistakes and, trying to avoid mistakes and learning from the mistakes of others. That was the main point of making that video, that you shouldn't have the mentality of learning from your mistakes, or, well, you should, of course, try to learn from your own mistakes, but the best mindset is to try to learn from the mistakes of others, so that you don't have to pay a heavy price for the same lesson. So you can get the lesson for free by listening to some older guys, and hopefully you can steer well clear of many of the dangers that might otherwise haunt you. Mistakes and injuries that might haunt you. So anyway, as I mentioned in that video, there needs to be a balance between taking risks and being prudent and intelligent. You will need to take risks, so we're gonna talk about the Temple of Iron, because if you want to be a modern day philosopher, you have to train in the gym and you have to train MMA, and if you combine those two experiences, you have a good foundation for your philosophy, so you can learn so much from them. So the weights in the gym, they are your philosophy teacher. So anyway, you can take something like a heavy squat, where you actually have a real element of danger in it when you put yourself under the bar, especially if you don't have any spotters, no one on the sides to catch you should you fall. So you have an element of real danger. Now, this element is actually something that is metaphysically good for you, that you embrace that risk and you have that liminal space between not knowing, will I be able to manage it? So you know that you have a bit of a lighter weight, you have the knowledge that you can manage it, and then you want to set a PR and you don't know if you will manage that. So that's the liminal space between these two weights. And when I'm just going over a little bridge here, there we are, and then when you take that leap of faith, that will make you grow. But you shouldn't do this without preparation. You shouldn't be foolish. You shouldn't ego lift. So ego lift is when you want to prove to yourself and to others that you can lift a certain weight. This is I would say it's to be avoided, but I also know that you have to have a bit of ego to progress, because if you don't have any pride or ego at all, then it might be the case that you don't go forward at all. So what I want to say is that you should have that hunger, that yearn for taking another step on the path to the overman. So every day is a step towards your ideal version of yourself. So you need to take, a few small risks, but you have to limit the risks. So really, what I want to say here, excuse me if I'm rambling, I will get to the point shortly. What I want to say is that be intelligent, do think about your results in the long run. And I will use an example. So my current PR in the deadlift is 263 kilos. Now, would you admire me more? Would you listen to my advice more keenly had I a PR of 10 kilos more? You probably wouldn't. It probably doesn't care. It probably doesn't matter all too much if I have, 10 kilos more or less. It might be a big deal for me because of the momentum and the progression, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter all too much. Now, why do I say this? Yes, it's because you might be newer in the gym, you might desperately want a PR of say 200 kilos, because it's a nice even number, it's sort of a milestone. So you might want to be, you want to reach that milestone, and you might be so impatient to reach that milestone, so you take a risk and then you snap your back. You're going to Snap City, like the old meme. It was an old meme back in the day. Snap City was like when you did a lift with a poor technique so that you would snap something in your back. So it's not worth it, because you will reach that goal sooner or later with some more patience anyway. So don't be hasty, you will get there eventually. It might just be a bit of time. So I know this myself, I wasn't necessarily the most patient young man myself, and I'm fortunate that I didn't hurt myself. I never did anything, reckless or stupid. Sometimes maybe the technique wasn't the best. I've seen worse technique though. So anyway, my point here is that it's better to have a good technique, and your progression, it might wait a bit. Your PR that you really, really want, I understand it, I've been there myself. It will have to wait a bit, so that you know that you can perform a lift with a good technique, so that you don't jeopardize your long-term health. Because if you snap something in your shoulder, in your back, then it might be goodbye to heavy training for a long time. And I would also say the following, that if you do train at the gym and you see someone, a younger guy, he might have a really bad technique, you can do him a favor by, politely telling him that, maybe he doesn't have a super straight back when he does deadlifts or whatever it might be. Of course, it depends on the gym as well and depends on many factors, but you can do someone a favor by pointing that out. I've had this happen to myself, and I've said it to others as well, and I appreciate it when some guys told me, your back here on the fifth rep on the deadlift, it looks a bit not super good. And only like last year, an older power lifter, he said to me, this is good, this is a good lift, I wouldn't push it any further. And I said, okay, that's a good insight, thanks for telling me. It's always good to have a second opinion on your form, so stay within the realm of not getting injured. So I believe I've made my point. It's just I want to repeat myself a bit, because it truly breaks my heart to see guys getting injured in this way, and especially when we're talking about a lot of weights. It comes with a risk. Same thing if we're talking about fighting. If you do want to participate in some sort of fight, MMA fight or Thai boxing fight or whatever, a good coach will tell you if you're not ready. Then he will say to you, you know what, for your own well-being, you need to train more. I personally get quite angry when I see guys going up in the ring and they start, to flinch back big time when they start getting hit, and you see that who let him go up in the ring because he's not ready. He will only injure himself, and that will be not only a blow, to his physical well-being, but also to his mental well-being. He might have had, good momentum otherwise, but now he might be completely demoralized because someone who should have had his back did not tell him that now is not the time. So it's good to have older guys looking out for you, saying that you are not ready. And you shouldn't take this as an insult or anything like that. You should take it as a sign of that your coach then, he cares about you, that he doesn't want you to get injured, that you need to train a bit more. And that doesn't make you a bad fighter. It doesn't make you a, low thumos or anything like that. It simply means that you will need to train more. So nothing strange with it. Same thing if you're doing some powerlifting meet and you talk to someone, a coach for example, and he says, I wouldn't risk this particular weight. Then you say, okay, you probably know best, I should listen to you. So he says that from a position of caring about you. Alright, that was enough cardio for me. I've now seated myself on a nice tree. So a good cardio whilst talking. Nah, I'm joking. It doesn't count as cardio. I need to do more cardio actually. But anyway, what to do if you get injured, you might ask. So this is where we come to the stage that a mistake has been made, because you shouldn't become injured. That's the first thing. But you know, bad things can always happen. After all, if we're talking about heavy lifting in the gym, we're talking about martial arts, there is always an element of risk. So that's something to keep in mind as well, that if something happens, it's not super unexpected either. Like, you should try to avoid as much as possible, but it can happen, and then you need to make the best out of a bad situation. So simply put, you want to continue to progress in something, and this is more about your mental well-being and to keep a high thumos attitude to life, so that if you're used to having a good momentum, you're going forward, and then you suddenly come to a stop, that's not good at all for your mental well-being. So you need to have that constant tension going forward. If you don't have that, if you stop on your path to become better, then you might have a depression knocking on the door. So you've probably seen this as well. You have a guy who's really high thumos, he goes to the gym or he goes to train whatever, then he gets injured, he stops having that positive mindset, and then he spirals down. It's very common, and it's not super complicated why it happens, because if you don't have that forward momentum, you slow down and then you get drawn down in a dark pit, so to speak. So what you need to do as soon as possible if you get injured, you need to find another path to go forward on. So I mentioned in the last video that I recommended a friend to try to meditate a bit more, to do some more breathing exercises, because that's another path he can go forward on. And then eventually he has, been excited for, the progression on that path, and then he's well in his body, he can continue with the powerlifting. So that's something good. It's a good way to approach it, and it can be anything really. You can take up painting or calligraphy or whatever it is, as long as you get a little victory each day. So then you might ask, this isn't part of my overall plan. If your plan is to be, if you want to be a pro MMA fighter, or if you want to be a powerlifter or whatever, and then I'm talking here about calligraphy, you say it's not really relevant to my journey. But the last thing you want to do is to feel bad mentally, because then that will also slow down your recovery. Life is quite cruel in that way, that when you sort of give up, life, Mother Nature, will not make it easier for you. But if you still have a good mentality, then you will speed up your recovery. So we can talk about the placebo effect. That's the most powerful supplement, by the way. The supplement that is the most powerful is the one you believe in. So it could be a complete placebo, it can still do wonders for you. So that's the power of the mind. So keep that in mind as well, that if you have a good attitude, a good mindset, if you're enthusiastic about life, if you're keen on life, keen on whatever, then you will be back on track in a lot sooner, and then also it's more fun to live that way also. So if you're listening to this and you have become injured, you can't train, or you can't do something that you would otherwise really like to do some calligraphy. It's nice. We all want to be cultured gentlemen, so we might as well, train there, and then you can post some nice calligraphy instead of posting physique until you're better, and then you can start training. Then of course we can talk about truly brutal stuff, such as being disabled, and I'm not gonna sit here and say that everything is fine and you can still live as you did before, because of course you can't, but you can still make the best out of a bad situation. So one of my favorite authors, Julius Evola, which I enjoy reading his insights. I've soon read all of his books. I don't agree with him on many of his political takes, but the magico-mystical takes I enjoy greatly. And I say I don't agree with his political takes because he was quite black-pilled when it came to engaging politically. And of course, for me, I encourage you to engage politically. Anyway, he got injured, he got disabled. He went out into during a bomb raid in Austria, so he went out to just tempt fate, which maybe not the most intelligent thing to do, but I'm not gonna say anything about it, because he was a great mystic and thinker and author, and he wrote many of his finest books when he was in a wheelchair. So if you are in a wheelchair, I'm not gonna comment too much about it because I don't have any experience, but I'm saying that you can still contribute greatly even though you are disabled. So look at Julius Evola, for example. Disabled still managed to produce some really thought-provoking texts and great works that we can enjoy today. So if you are disabled, and again, I know this is easy for me to say, but you can still try to, appreciate that you have eyesight, you have, working hands, a working mind, you can read, you can write, you can contribute in a positive way. So anyway, the point there is that you can often, at least, you can find a way to progress in something. You can engage in art, or you can delve deep into some interest you have. You can read books, you can do all of these things, you can continue to get better at something at least. And now it depends on how injured you are. I can only paint with a very broad brush here, but what I want to say is that the main thing, find something that you can go a path, find a path that you can begin walking, and then you will feel better. Now, on a similar note, it's very important that your motivation comes from within, so that you don't rely on necessarily the approval of others. Now, don't get me wrong, it can be nice to get the approval of others, but the sense of accomplishment, it needs to come from within. The motivation, it needs to come from within, that you enjoy every step of the journey. Because if you don't have that mindset, and if you rely on positive reinforcement from others, then you will stand still the minute that motivation disappears. So to yet again use the example of the injured powerlifting who does calligraphy now for the coming months, if you lift for, maybe you wanted to go to the gym in the first place to look good for the ladies, which is a perfectly fine reason to do it. But when you outsource your motivation, when you outsource your inner sense of accomplishment, of thumos, then it can be taken away from you. So if you instead have an inner sense of the path of the overman, that you continuously take one step, that no one really needs to know about it. No one needs to know what your ideal of yourself is. As long as you know it, as long as you gain a sense of accomplishment when you've taken one step. So instead of impressing others with a big lift in the gym, you impress yourself with a fine stroke of the pen, a fine stroke of the calligraphy pen, so that you get the sense of accomplishment, so that you are happy with your performance. So I'm not sure if this sounds reasonable, I'm not sure if this makes sense, but think about it. Think about it, and you will be in a better situation, especially if you are injured or in a bad situation. So as long as you have a strong central core, motivation comes from within, the sense of achievement comes from within, then it's easier for you to be happy and to feel accomplished. And again, when you are happy, you will be healthier. If you're unhappy, you will be unhealthy. It's just how cruel life can be sometimes, that life or Mother Nature or the gods, they look at your momentum and they bless the momentum. And if you lose momentum, you will slowly sink. So you need to find a different momentum to build up, and then you will be happy, and then you will heal yourself quicker. So something to keep in mind. Anyway, I hope that was somewhat insightful. Do head over to legiogloria.com. Do become a channel member if you're watching this on YouTube. Listen to all podcast episodes. If you are in good old Sweden, head over to jotunheimnutrition.se. Get yourself some nice whey, also good for recovery. Collagen as well, good for recovery. So anyway, thanks for watching and thanks for your support. XOXO. Boom!